This is 17 to 1. I'm Van Velding, and I have watched this movie 17 times.
I'm Derek, and I've seen this movie one time.
Are you ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1, engage. I have Paramount logo. I assumed we'd slip right into the Starfield. Yeah, Paramount's fucking huge pile of dog shit at this point. He said, starting off a chain of irrevocable editing he's going to have to do. Yeah, like they almost didn't make this movie.
Okay, wow.
Because 5, you may be surprised at this, but 5 flopped hard and made like $3 and few cents.
Oh, really? Yeah, no, I'm not.
Yeah, so
not really
the guy who ran Paramount is like, oh, hey, let's make another one because I really like Star Trek. They deserve a good send-off, which is what the fans thought. And then, like, Paramount was just in, like, this huge turmoil because Paramount has always been a mountain not of granite with a snow peak, but just poop, and then more poop on top of it. So
yeah, you can really just kind of see it as, like, the poop emoji if you just squint your eyes a little bit.
Yeah, and they...
Oh, man, DeForest Kelley. It's going to be fun doing the, like, McCoy's a spy bit. Yeah. It's one of my faves.
So they almost didn't make this because they were in turmoil, and that guy got sacked, and the guy who replaced him got sacked, and then eventually the last person is like, let's continue making this movie. And they had the same budget as Star Trek V because they're like, we want to make this, we don't want to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, I mean, stay with me here. This looks a lot better than Star Trek V.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you take some of the Star Trek out of it, like if you just kind of like an action movie in the 90s that happens in space kind of deal, it gets to this point where it's very like superficial storytelling, which isn't necessarily bad. There are some of my favorite movies, like Big Trouble in Little China. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff there that nothing ever gets explained. It's just super like over the top, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just like Star Trek has this sort of Michael Dorn. That's nice.
Yeah.
Star Trek has this sort of kind of persona of being like technical and sciencey, and this is how people got into science, and they wanted to be astronauts because they watched Star Trek or whatever. And so,
I mean, a testament to that is the number of high-profile '90s actors in this thing with its crappy little budget. It's just a cavalcade of recognizable names.
Yeah, for sure. And and it's you want it to kind of do some of that, but at a certain point it doesn't. It's just like, nope. Because like at the beginning you're like, okay, we have some interesting space things, like, oh man, a political pod.
Like speaking of the beginning, like we get like this slow orchestral plowing through the star field credit sequence, which you could never do today.
Oh yeah, no. We'd be like 5 minutes into a shootout right now.
Yeah, right. I would expect you would walk into the theater and they'd be, lobbing Nerf gun bullets at you just try to keep you stimulated every second of your theater experience. And that's not necessary because this scene is built on contrast, on things being incredibly quiet, and then bam.
Right.
Just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that contrast is what pulls you in, and like that's the whole thing. The beginning of a movie needs to be able to do is hook you, and like having like a shootout at like the first 2 minutes is very much like a jump scare in a horror movie. It's kind of, you see it, it's becoming tired and cliche.
So Sulu's been promoted. All of these people are freaking commanders or captains. They're all long overdue to have their own commands.
I mean, isn't that weird, though? That they're like, you're all captains. You could all be doing the space fleet, but we're going to run this mission with all of you on one ship, the Enterprise.
And Chekhov's going to be something. Commander Chekhov. Commander of whatever.
This is funny right here. You can see like the little tag that says like Made in China on the thing that fell.
Yeah, so one thing is that this set actually moved. In fact, that's what Sulu's table does. Is it makes
neat.
the set. Yeah, so they're not just moving the camera and have everybody go along with it. They're actually moving the set.
This is kind of
this much, but
this is kind of weird though. Like we're already in like, okay, so we're in a supernova. Okay, fine, but don't we have shields to prevent this kind of stuff?
Yeah, and then it propagates through space, like super quick.
Yeah, like,
and the geography of this episode entices me. Oh, by the way, that's Janice Rand in the upper right corner. Woo, Janice Rand.
Yeah, Jan.
She's back.
Remember Rand, baby.
So yeah, and she's, she has a small role in here. They keep giving her small roles in these movies with like shifting ranks, and I'm happy they do.
Yeah.
Because they fucking owe her way more than that, but at least that. So
yeah, we get some quality graphics here too. That is like so like retro. Like these are all little TVs, right? Like nothing, no flat screens. These are all tube TVs.
They nailed.
And it's just kind of fun.
The graphical difference between Janice Rand close up. The difference between classic Star Trek, The Next Generation, they're in between that right now, and they nail that with the visual design.
Yeah,
it just looks great.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's kind of weird to me that the Klingons' moon's name is Praxis.
Yeah. Explain this to me, because Praxis has entered the common vernacular as some sort of catchphrase for I don't know what explain Praxis to me, please.
Well, so I mean, essentially, the old way, the way you kind of look at it when you're kind of supposedly with your communist friends in college is that Praxis is supposed to be how you do a thing, not how you talk about a thing. So if you're let's say an art critic that doesn't draw, then you have no praxis. Like you're not. And so when people talk about now, like it's kind of like the common vernacular is like when you see some act that you agree with, like heartily, you say it's good praxis.
Okay.
And so
in Tumblr we call that direct action, and there's almost no qualifications to it. So yeah, that's good.
yeah. I mean, it's certainly becoming one of those words that no longer mean things. It's just like a thing that you just say.
I just learned that word, and now it doesn't mean anything. So,
well, I mean, it's still I don't know. It depends on who you talk to. Like it can be niche in some circles and not niche in others.
They didn't have the budget to film all of these guys doing other stuff before being recalled, kind of like the intro to Star Trek V. The only notable feature there is Dr. McCoy shows up drunk to medical conferences because he has consent for the entire thing.
Yeah. Also, this is funny how like you have two handoffs.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm the leader of this meeting, and I'll be turning over to this person. Everyone sit down.
A lot of these people have medals. That lady that just walked away had medals over her insignia. These guys all have medals underneath. And then none of our dudes are wearing their medals, so they look like dicks.
Yeah. Or they just don't have medals because they're plebs. I don't know.
Yeah. Possibly it's because, they're working, and none of these guys are working. They're just hanging out with their medals all day.
Yeah, that's true.
Is this twisty?
Didn't land. I knew this was going to happen. Like, I mean, when they said, where's Spock? Wonder if Spock is. Like, obviously he's leading the meeting.
But Spock's doing diplomatic stuff, just like in Unification Part 1 and 2.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I mean, that makes sense. And, like, him... What's weird is that... I think they've already established that, like, oh, man, we're, like, 3 months to retirement. Like, that they were supposed to close everything down and turn out the lights in 3 months.
Yeah.
And so when he's like, where's Spock? It kind of makes this notion that they have like some sort of enterprise like club where they all like hang out and chill and like have breakfast and talk about the good old glory days. And
I mean,
oh man, he wasn't at breakfast this morning. What happened?
Yeah. And people rag on the 2009 movies for having too much branding, but for crying out loud, there's a Delta on the desk on the podium here. There's one behind Spock, and then there's 3 on the window behind him. Like, ease off.
Everyone is wearing them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you're right. Like, they all went to the early bird special, and because the premise of this movie is that they're too old for this. And, and now we're having, like, this discussion of policy of, like, were they all going to retire at the same time? Or are they just going to retire the ship, and they were all going to retire I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But, like, this is weird where they're talking about dismantling the fleet, and it's like, well, no, they were just gonna... It was just the one. It was just gonna be... And this guy's, like, just casually just, like, suggesting, like, genocide in a meeting.
Yeah.
Like, hey, no, just let them all die. Who cares?
Just let their economy implode. And then put up a big sign that says "No Prime Directing here" by order of Starfleet. That's what we do, fellas.
a big stake out front say "No Prime Directing here" by order of management.
Right. So I don't know why Kirk's command staff is here, except for the reason that we want to see them, because this movie was made for fans.
Yeah,
and that may be its biggest flaw.
Yeah. And so we're kind of getting brought up to speed the way Captain Kirk is getting brought up to speed, right? Like, he's like, wait, what?
So great.
I don't know I'm here. And now you tell me I gotta...
It's a quintessentially Shatner line delivered by Shatner. It's great.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it could almost be trademarked. He, this is interesting where he's like, what? Like, he's like, he's somewhat incensed, right?
Yeah.
Vouched? Like, he's just... that's funny.
Well, we're kind of building up the resistance to the idea of the end of the Cold War. I mean, the standoff with the Klingons.
Right, right.
But this is, at this time, 1991, I believe, the Cold War was ending.
Yeah.
The Soviet
I just want to say
going.
how cold-blooded this is, administratively speaking. Like, hey, you got voluntold, all right, peace. Just everyone left. Like, you had 10 people that did not have to be here.
They gotta... They're no, they don't have to be here.
Yeah.
But this was an important deal, and all of those extras in Starfleet.
This is kind of goofy, right? An old Vulcan proverb: "Only Nixon could go to China." Like, this is like the beginning of like my what the hell? Like, this is
Okay,
what do you
counterpoint.
mean it's a
Best
Vulcan...
line of the movie. So you may not know this, but Nixon did have a diplomatic mission to China. It was one that people didn't think would work. I mean, props to Nixon for what Nixon did good. That wasn't unconstitutional. I didn't know about this, and I was educated about it by Star Trek.
Yeah.
And the fact that the relationship between Vulcans and humans goes back so far that the cultures have been intertwined into their own idioms from each other's history is a really cool idea that belongs in Star Trek. I wish I could see more of it.
And and I think it's fine. It's just kind of like the shot off the port bow of just us referencing current history in like this far future setting, and in some places it totally doesn't work.
Nixon was 20 years ago for those guys. But here's Kim Cattrall with the bold, no sideburns look.
Yeah,
I mean, Kim Cattrall was a big deal back in the day, I'm told.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember hearing her name, but I don't really know what she's kind of known for. I assume for being an actress. Yeah, and then McCoy, casual racism from McCoy. I mean,
so
you Vulcans, they're all the same.
You may have guessed that this is Saavik, but not Saavik.
Saavik.
Remember Saavik from Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 3? She was the other Vulcan lady.
For
20 years.
Yeah.
She lived by Kirstie Alley and then some other lady.
Okay.
So Cheers was doing really well, so Kirstie Alley didn't want to do this. And they didn't want to bring the other lady back, which, whatever. And Kim Cattrall wanted to be in Star Trek, so they
Okay.
And she's like, oh, I don't want to be Saavik. She's so young. And it's like, Saavik's an adult.
This is so goofy, but it's like she makes like, the newbie made the old funny suggestion, and he's like, nope, do what I said.
Kirk is such a rogue. We didn't watch the original series.
Yeah. He's like, she doesn't know that I love burning rubber in space dock.
Yeah, like, dude, you're moving at significant fractions of C inside of a full space dock. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And so, I mean, and the weirdest thing about like them taking the bridge is just.
I want to mention that was Geordi's engineering. That's where Geordi sits. They used a lot of TNG sets for this because of budget, and they put like some stuff on it.
Yeah,
like mostly old people, and then it looks different then. So
dirt beef check.
Just some respect.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, what's funny is just like you have all of these like captains and I don't know, Kirk was an admiral once, like all taking like these very low positions. Like, get all the way, ensign, I need to navigate. Like, aren't you a captain, sir?
Yeah, so I'm gonna navigate way better than you, pleb.
Like, when's the last time you navigated, Captain? Oh, it's been decades now.
Our quartermaster's a full commander. He used to run a starship. Hey, can I get some boots? I don't know. Can you, Lieutenant? Like, oh, man.
It's just so wild to me.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, like, you have to kind of... I get what it is. It's a movie. It's about the old, you know, Star Trek cast. So you forgive it. But it's hard not to make that joke, right? Because it's just funny.
And, like, even being a fan of this stuff, watching it as a fan, as a kid... it was still so satisfying to see Sulu command a ship.
Yeah.
And like you want that, like you wanted a plot that could have incorporated these people moving on with their careers and their lives,
right,
a little bit.
Right.
Disappointing we couldn't do that. So
I don't know what this is, like what's happening. I guess he's making like some ginger tea in the most over the top way possible.
Look,
like I don't know.
When you take some fairly blanket Orientalism and you mix it with some Jewish traditions, you end up with something we white people like to call exotic. And, you know, I think there's a little bit of that flavor here, where it's, you know, kind of a Japanese tea ceremony by way of space science fiction and Vulcan culture.
Yeah, I mean, so much so that, I mean, not even the tea ceremony required a wardrobe change. Like, he straight up, like, got into his tea-making robes. And why she's not allowed, like, why she's not doing robes is weird, but okay.
That's fair. After 5 years of TNG, I'm happy to see someone in casual attire.
Yeah.
Honestly. But, you know, I think it acknowledges that Spock has a significant culture to him. It doesn't have to be Vulcan. It could be human. His mom could be from Detroit. This could be an awful pizza. So, whatever. I'm just glad that there's some culture to an individual.
Yeah, like it would be funny if like he gives her and she tastes like, do you sense it? The aroma? It's mozzarella cheese.
Yeah.
I've concocted a brew that tastes exactly like Chicago style pizza from 1995.
And she's like, this isn't a pizza, sir. This is a stroganoff. This is comes from a pot. It's deep. It's like a thick stew, sir. It's like, it's a pizza.
Damn it. Back to the drawing board. I need more Parmesan. Yeah. Some of that 300-year-old Parmesan.
But we just made fun of in Unification in the Beige and the Bold of how he's close friends with Pardek for 80 years, starting apparently in this movie, and then Pardek betrays him, and you're like, oh, we feel nothing.
Yeah.
And then we do the exact same fucking thing here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't catch that, G, now, but it's like, oh, we're gonna... listen, you know, I know that I look old, and I know that we're long-lived, but I'm thinking about retiring. I mean, I know I have like a good 3, 4, maybe 5,000 years left, but you know, I feel like it's time for me to walk away from Starfleet, and I want you to be my person that takes my spot.
But the tea ceremony, I think, is one of the reasons you didn't realize that, because there is a moment where they do connect culturally. And because we have a scene that establishes that connection, we don't feel cheated later when we're expected to feel bad about her betraying him. We feel like she's betrayed him. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, it's hard to know, like, what is the minimum amount of connection you need for that betrayal to land.
Yeah.
And part of what I guess gets is, like, it's not just we've been friends for 80 years coming out of left field. Like, everyone on the bridge sort of kind of connects with her, right?
Yeah. She seems to be part of the crew, which I kind of resent. Like, would this movie have been so bad if Chekhov had been Spock's protege, which he obviously was in the original series, and then Chekhov betrays the crew for this conspiracy, and then Chekhov goes away forever? Like, sure, Chekhov's stance would have been mad, but, like, he'd have been doing something. He could have gotten more lines. He would have had a character with his own agenda and his own plot and his own outlook.
Right.
I don't know how him being Russian would have factored in. Whatever.
Yeah. Russians and Klingons have a very tight kinship. I don't know.
This is David Warner.
This is kind of interesting.
Good. David Warner doing back-to-back appearances. He was the human ambassador in the previous movie. He's now Gorkin in this movie. He was going to have another iconic appearance in Star Trek later on because David Warner's freaking great.
I mean, yeah. he does that kind of like aloof bureaucrat very well.
Okay, I want this. Okay, so Chekhov, it says, guess who's coming to dinner? Right. Obviously, a lot of racism here, which Gene Roddenberry didn't like. Racism on behalf of Starfleet here, which Gene Roddenberry didn't like, which I don't like. I get that it establishes the barriers to finding peace with the Klingons. But Nichelle Nichols, a lot of that racism comes from the black folks in the cast. They wanted Nichelle Nichols to say, guess who's coming to dinner? Right. And Brock Peterson, who played the Admiral in like 3 scenes ago in the big conference room thing, he says they'd become the intergalactic trash of the galaxy, the talking point for Republicans and welfare in the 90s. He says, we'll bring them to your knees. We'll be in a better position to negotiate. That's something that was said about black folks in another movie Brock Peterson was in. He didn't feel comfortable with it. I mean, he took the check. Nichelle Nichols actually had the power to dig her heels in and not do it. So it got shifted to Chekhov. Weird thing about white people needing to have black people be racist. Like,
it's probably like a power play, isn't it? Like, it's kind of like, I can make you do something that you don't want to do. This is the ancient Klingon ritual of seeing. Just
looking at you a little bit. Yeah. General Chang.
Yeah. This guy is, he's a hoot. He's fun to have at parties.
Christopher Plummer, man. The dude is a little too intense. And, like, I know that's how it's scripted, but he delivers. Right. And he's great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it would be like,
another
hey,
great shot.
What do you want?
That sarcastic, right. Sorry, I love this movie. Yeah, right. I'm glad that you're here to bring some perspective to us.
Yeah, it's fun. Like it's like they all have to look at them. It's just kind of like, okay.
And those last two had a lot of,
I see that we no longer have the.
Go on.
Yeah, I see we no longer have like the whistle ritual in TNG when people like come on board. The electronic whistle, I guess.
Yeah, bosun's whistle. Yeah, it's a diplomatic function. This scene has a lot of two layers to it. Where the first time you read this as she's just saying, "Hey, don't be dicks." Yeah. But this time she's in on the conspiracy.
Right. Yeah. And because I mean, it seems like she was hiding in like a corner that whole time. Like, where did she come from?
Yeah, I know, right? She's waiting in the wing.
We're all enjoying some menthol with our dinner.
The actors, in spite of being paid like enough to jeopardize the production of this film, also demanded $20 for each bite they took of this whatever's up here.
Okay.
Bill Shatner pulled in $240, which, as a similar moondivore, I respect.
What? So wait, I don't understand. Like, how did they pull that off? Like, how did they like say like, oh well, in addition to my pay, if I got to eat this, you got to pay me more money?
They're like, we're not going to eat this shit, and the director's like, come on, just eat this shit. And they're like, no, we're not going to do it. He's like, all right, I'll give you $20 every time you eat this shit. And they're like, okay, sometimes you need that neurochemical feedback immediately.
Yeah.
And, again, apparently some kind of octopus or something. I don't know why they couldn't just dye stuff. They moved on from food cubes, though. Progress.
This is kind of interesting, too. It's like, hey, Captain Kirk, I thought you were a snob. You're cool with all this illegal stuff? Yeah, we're far enough from Starfleet. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. Although that looks less like ale and more like wine.
Yeah.
I also want to note that they're in the TNG meeting room. Geordi's about to come in here and tell them about a quantum entanglement.
Right. Sometime.
Like, oh shoot, is the wrong day. They were on the summer break from TNG, so they got all the sets. So.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I like. So this is where like the tension kind of starts ramping up, right? Like we started off and like, oh yeah, we're all just kind of like breaking the tension. We're all trying to have break bread together, that kind of stuff. And people are trying to get
great cringe shot from Nimoy.
Yeah. And I'm like, wait, I thought, what happened to like your emotions, man?
Yeah. So this scene jumps around a bit. There's a big chunk of we immediately jump to Chekhov going, we believe that all species have alien rights. Like, Chekhov, who talked to you, Chekhov? You start talking about inalienable rights.
You know what an alien means? Yeah, and she kind of points out human rights. Yeah, the name's very racist, which is good. Yeah. It's a good point out.
Azad Brewer makes some darn good points about Star Trek itself here, where she's like, a lot of your language is couched in human terms, and a lot of human characters. I'm like, makeup's expensive. Shut up, Azador.
Yeah, and then here the spy speaks up, like without blinking, right? Like, yeah, this is where we start getting. He's trying to do his own little statecraft going on, and then this dude,
it's so great. Like Shatner's half drunk Earth Hitler, 1936. It's just,
jeez,
it's just so great.
And as sinister as Kronos looks, he's actually a nice guy. Like he wanted good things. And he's like, I can't take you chimokes anywhere. I'm trying to just have a nice dinner with people that might not like us and, generate some goodwill. And here you are just being jerks.
Gorkin's doing his best, man.
Yeah.
He's a good guy. And
this is a good point right here. It's like, hey, listen, like, we fought against each other. If we're going to have peace, it's going to suck for us.
Yeah.
But we have to be willing. Like, if we believe in peace, we have to be willing to let it suck.
Right. Just
be uncomfortable.
Get through it. Yeah. And
this dude, what? Come on. This is going to be one of many. This is like, okay, so I always kind of give Star Trek a little bit of flack because of, public domain Shakespeare. And this is like the cherry on the cake. just having like a war general, a Klingon war general, every moment quoting Shakespeare that he possibly can. Also, Michelle Nichols is the only one not wearing pants. Weird.
Any one of these people could wear skirts, Derek. But
so let's see them then. Damn it!
It's Christopher Plummer, and he's just great at this. He knows what he is. He knows he's a villain who's not particularly deep. Such a great human scene for our main cast. And he's having fun with
sleep,
it.
Man.
No, he gets coffee, man. Although I have a feeling
he's got to sober up. He's got to write his report on like his first meeting with the enemy.
Yeah, he doesn't. He doesn't do that anymore. He left that life behind.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time believing McCoy's even phased by Romulan ale.
Yeah, that's a hard like anytime they like are about to start mad medding, McCoy's like, tea? Anyone want some tea? Like, some good old Long Island iced tea.
Yeah. So we immediately go back into crisis mode. It's great.
Right. Yeah, and you'd think like Spock would know this, like humans need to sleep, and his space elf like. But then he's like, "Hey, look, no, this is important. I'm actually your science officer. You remember?
Yeah. Well,
you're a captain. We're doing the science officer bit. Come on, you know this.
When you're the captain, man, it's your sleep schedule. Like I've been on so many boats and so many ships where it's like, it's happening, sir. I know you went to sleep 4 hours ago, but you're gonna have to lead us through this because you're a captain, and it doesn't matter how much sleep you've had. Yeah, it is stupid, but how brave of them to put a timer on the view screen for like the clock.
Yeah,
like people don't do that in movies because it's hard to edit shots together if there's a giant freaking clock there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
1 a.m.
Interesting.
Yeah,
this is interesting though because you're like, wait, like so the first. Like, you got pulled into the narrative with this big explosion. And you're like, huh, weird.
Yeah.
And then, you get, like, this political thing. And you're like, okay, we're gonna be escorting the people. There's going to be some tension, fine. Yeah. And all of a sudden, this happens. You're like, whoa, what's going on? Like, I know, being a fan of Star Trek, they wouldn't have fired. So what happened?
Yeah. And that's
also
our mystery.
the first time we get, like, zero gravity in, like, a fight scene.
Heck
weird.
Yeah.
When I was seeing this, I'm like, okay, this is kind of throwing me because they never did zero gravity before, but then they kind of explained it later. So that's
it's great. It's part of the story. They're like, oh, we're in space and we're using part of our space milieu to make these people vulnerable. It's really great. Like if there's only one time in Star Trek where they do the whole zero G bit, I would like it to be here where it's integral to the plot. And it leads us to clues. Yeah, and Klingon warriors, maybe they're all slow on the draw.
Yeah, and I mean, not only does it lead us to clues, it gives us a good mystery to have. Like, you understand that this was a calculated plot. This wasn't just, hey, you got to pull this together to the last minute, bomb the planet on the ship. This was the they fired 2 shots. They hit them in certain spaces so they could make sure and confirm that one person died. Like the person they want was dead.
Right. It's a multi-step plan. It requires individual actors. It requires multiple steps. Like that's what you want from any plan in a story.
Right.
And it gives us that. It's good. It's the strongest part of the film, probably.
And this is, I do like how sinister this is. How we have people in essentially Starfleet uniforms, but we can't see their faces.
Yeah.
So they're like this stark white in this quintessentially red and like metal background, and it comes off as pretty sinister, and that's good. It should be.
It's freaking excellent. And they got the faceless visors, and again, Klingons apparently have no 0G training. And they just shoot and they back right out. The CG Pepto-Bismol blood is, excusable.
I mean, the blood kind of throws me off because it's a laser, right? It would cauterize instantly, but all right, whatever.
It's a phaser, but yeah, that's a good point. But it's necessary because it's a huge plot point, which I don't want to like spoil anything, but all Klingon blood after this movie is going to be just regular blood. They just completely...
Oh man, that kind of sucks.
I know! It's a major plot point for a feature friggin' film.
Well, also too, like, if you look at human, like, not so much human blood, but like if you look at blood in like the theater, it has to be stark. Like it's good to have the contrast, right? And so if all your Klingons are like dark skinned, wear dark clothes and that kind of stuff, having that bright kind of magenta sort of blood really kind of lets you do these visceral scenes, right? Where like, and you can do it and say, oh no, that's just like the censors won't give you anything if it's alien blood. They don't care about alien blood. They only care about human blood.
Yeah. And again, that kind of goes with my theory of Klingons we had in the original series, Klingons here, and then Klingons in The Next Generation, different types of aliens who've all, at one point or another, taken control of and inculcated themselves into the power structure of the Klingon Empire in one way or the other. Yeah. That's my take on it. That's why sometimes they have forehead ridges, sometimes they don't. Yeah. But I'm an outsider. No one accepts my insane theories.
I do like this, though. This is a quintessentially Kirk's decision, right? He does the thing you don't expect him to do. Yeah. And he's just trying to, buy time is really what he wants.
Yeah.
To get down to the bottom of this mystery. Although the time that he needs is a lot more than he thinks at this moment.
Right.
McCoy's like, are we finally going to do it, Jim? Or are we finally going to wipe him off the face of the map? It's like, dang McCoy,
it's a good reason for McCoy to be on the bridge, though.
Yeah, it is.
And you can actually see it in this scene. Like, it's a plot point later.
Here they are. They're not mad-minting, but they're having the triumvirate, right? The triumvirate just had a powwow.
Yep. And then you can see the beryllium patch on Kirk's uniform.
Yeah. And that was clever. Like, I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, and like he has this, I would say, way of delivery, that kind of communicates authenticity quickly. It's like, listen, I'm here, I surrendered, I want to help. And even though they want to pull the trigger, this warlike culture wants to pull the trigger on these dudes. Oh yeah, they're letting them through to see what's up.
And props to that extra for conveying that so efficiently.
Right.
I think it's a good. Kirk's Starfleet training takes over. The guy behind McCoy, or maybe the lady, is in the worst Klingon makeup I've ever seen. Unsurprisingly, they're going to make all these Klingons up, shoot these things, and then turn around and shoot the other Klingon scenes. Yeah. I swear to goodness, that character's name is Klingon. Looks like a human undercover. Look at him over McCoy's shoulder with the worst makeup ever. It just doesn't sell.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's like he has like a ribbed bald cap, and then like just like they cut a mustache in half and just put it on the corners of his mouth. It
just the worst. Anyway, so Kirk's Starfleet training takes over. He's like, I gotta save this mission. I gotta do the right thing. I gotta help this guy. Yeah. Like, regardless of my feelings now, I'm in this. Right. Like, we want peace. Like, I don't like it, but I'm here. And it's a great scene for McCoy too, because we talked about the triumvirate, but a lot of these movies haven't focused on McCoy too much. Yeah. So it's good for McCoy to get his own scene.
Yeah, and like I don't know if he's definitely kind of being authoritative here, and then it's only in the middle when they realize he doesn't know what he's doing. I don't even know this anatomy. It's like, well, what the hell are you doing, McCoy?
Their other surgeon's dead. They've got nothing.
Do you not know his anatomy, or do you not know anatomy?
Well, let's not ask too many questions.
A little from column A, a little from column B.
So, and McCoy does manage to bring him out of this.
Yeah, for briefly, and like he to give a message, if only to the daughter, then if nothing else.
And that's the thing, is that like McCoy is just competent enough to have a little success, a marginal success, that helps us deliver one of the ideas of our movie. Gore can get some last words.
And those like, I was surprised they didn't pull him off when he started like pounding his chest, because that could look bad, since like Starfleet's the guy that shot this dude.
I was worried about that as a kid as well, but I mean, they're Klingons.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and so the little bubbles there, it's kind of a nice touch. Shows that there's some blood in the lungs. He's probably drowning.
Again, just little touches that are great. Everyone here seems devastated, and yet Chang does the great bit. Well, I mean, Chang's the one. You have the audacity to blow us out of the stars. Chang freaking knows what happened. Classic projection, right?
I mean, if you're gonna do any sort of double cross bit, you have to kind of have gone through acting school. Like, all right, listen, I know what's going on, but I really gotta sell that I don't.
Yeah. And it's just, I think this might be my favorite Klingon makeup on Chang, because it's so understated.
You almost I kind of get the impression that like he had gotten burned, like some of his hair, like the reason why he doesn't have a lot of hair is that he got maybe like a war wound or burned a little bit. That's
reasonable. Yeah,
because he has kind of like blotchy skin too, and I kind of thought like maybe that was what's going on, but I don't know. We
don't know. I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
If the story isn't going to tell us, Derek, the truth can be whatever you want.
Yeah, follow your heart. This is interesting. We get some classic kind of logic from Spock here. It's like, I know what Starfleet wants. However, the only way we can get through this is solving this mystery.
Yeah, but considering the fact that Valeris is going to do some things that go against Starfleet policy and principles in the future, like Spock himself is doing the same thing now, but for his own ends. Is that any different?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a fair amount. Like you could say, like, oh, well, their motives matter, but then even if a person's going to be part of some kind of plot, they believe that their motives are true and just. So then, who's supposed to win?
Exactly. These are some of my favorite scenes. This is the Klingon ambassador. I believe he was the guy from the last movie who's like, we got to prosecute Jim Kirk.
Yeah.
So it's good to see him back. Continuing on the same thread of like. It's easy to miss, but it feels like he has it in for Jim Kirk.
Yeah, and this is the Vulcan, I guess, ambassador, right?
Romulan.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And I gotta ask, man, is he a human? Like, I'm not trying to be racist here, but like, I just was curious if the president of the United Federation of Planets is a human. There's Sarek. Look at him.
See, that's our Vulcan ambassador.
Yeah.
So he's played by Kurtwood Smith. We're shooting this in 10 forward, by the way.
Okay.
You can see the windows.
Yeah.
He's not human. In fact, he really looks like a Klingon, which having a guy that looks like a Klingon as the president of the Federation is like, I don't know, electing a guy with the first name of Barack as president in 2008. Post 9/11
I mean, he looks
America.
like Rufus from like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, combined with I don't know, a guy from Dune or Christopher Lloyd. I don't know, someone with weird hair and eyes.
It's the eyes. He's played by Kurtwood Smith, better known as Red Foreman from that 70s show. He's going to have a more iconic role later in the franchise, so I want to go over that. But we lost a scene here. They cut a scene. Like after the Romulan and Klingon ambassadors head out, a Starfleet colonel, played by Rene Aubergeron, comes in. And he's like, we have a plan to extract Kirk and McCoy from the Klingon Empire. And the president puts on these glasses because you learn that he is legally blind. And he's like, well, what
Okay.
if, so he can look at the PowerPoint. And
Yeah.
he's like, what if this starts a war? And Colonel West looks at the camera and he's like, and frankly, sir, we'll clean their chronometers. And
Okay.
I really miss that scene because it says that we are in a position to go to war with the Klingons and win that war, but we won't.
I mean, this is the only thing we get here is like kind of the Klingons dictating terms that would have definitely gone a long way to kind of sell the political nature of what's happening. Like we don't really like it's somewhat there, like, but you get it a lot later in the movie where it's like, okay, we're having this conference, but we can't tell you where it is and all this other kind of stuff. Like when that is like, okay, so maybe it was like a big kind of tree, bigger tree than we kind of felt like it was.
Yeah.
Like we got those words early on, but they didn't really land. And I feel like that scene probably would have done a little bit better in selling it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good scene, but the thing is, it's so great.
Oh, man, this guy's so over the top. He's like, let's attack.
But it shows the pressures, right? Because, again, without that cut, the president of the Federation also had this same briefing, right? Colonel West came in and said, yeah, no, we can totally take him.
I love how, like, negotiation 101 in Klingon culture is splaying yourself over the table to get as close as possible to the person you want to convince. Because it doesn't happen just once. It happens twice. And you're like, dang, dude, like... like I kind of expected him to like just start swimming like over it like to get closer to her. You don't understand.
But they're passionate. We visually communicate that, even if we are stuttering a little bit.
Yeah.
And Chang is out here saying,
well, having those jerky movements kind of helps sell the aggressiveness of like Klingon culture. Because I mean, they're supposed to be a warlike culture, right? I'm not a big fan of like, all they do is war, nothing else kind of things. But, if they're a warlike culture, them moving and aggressive, like grabbing people, shaking people, that sort of, those visceral reactions goes a long way to selling like, hey, these guys don't just logic their way out of things. They beat each other up.
And like Chang being so cool tells you that he's a little smarter than the average bear. If the Shakespeare did.
Also, that's a pro-ass gavel.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
That's true. It's like, all right, if you want to be a judge, you gotta use your hand cut off because this whole ball's connected to the hand.
Yeah, it's...
Damn.
That judge comes away from this movie completely unscathed. He's just a straight-up badass, and we want to know more about him.
Yeah, I'd love to know more. Like, what happened to his hand? Like, what's the significance of that gavel? Why is he so high up?
Oh, yeah.
I have so many questions.
I like the incredibly linear, vertically linear nature of this courtroom here.
I like how he only has one arm, so like, oh yeah, he was there. He was there like a witness. It kind of sells. Yeah. I was like, wait,
we watched him get his arm shot off.
Yeah, I was so thrilled by this because I'm like, wait a minute, like Colonel Worf, what are you talking about? I thought like Kirk died like way before TNG.
Yeah. And so this is like 75 years before, and this is Worf. He's played by Michael Dorn. So you can infer, but they never explicitly tell us that this is Worf's grandfather. This is Moog's father, who then had Worf, who named Worf.
Okay, so it's like a family name then. That makes sense.
Yes. And it's a good bit.
I like that. Like, I mean, look how cool McCoy delivers that. Like, I got some laughs. Yeah, look at me. And he's like, it didn't work.
a singular way. Yeah. And I think with that laugh, we established this courtroom isn't quite the sort of
one-sided.
Yeah, but also it's not the reserved sort of professional courtroom we would like to envision American courts being. It is a little more of an audience to be swayed.
I don't know. Like Judge Judy isn't too professional.
But we accept that that's for show. I would like to think that most people put a barrier between Judge Judy and what we actually imagine courtrooms would be like. Which again, maybe they shouldn't, because maybe courtrooms are actually a little more like Judge Judy.
Yeah, and so this is this is McCoy selling that he really gives a damn about medicine. I tried to save him, man. I mean, I'm as good as an EMT, but still.
the through line that we have for McCoy from watching the original series, something which grew organically out of it, but which continues to be supported by text, is that McCoy was a spy way back in the day, and then he was put on the Enterprise to watch this young captain and his Vulcan first officer, and he eventually learned the value of a human life, like that guy, what that engrossed point blank. And he repudiates all of that, and at the end of the series, he leaves and he goes into hiding, and Kirk calls him back because he knows he's a spy. And he's trying to be a good guy, even though he was never really a doctor. All of like the heavy lifting, the medical heavy lifting was done by his Nurse Chapel. Nurse Chapel. That's it. And so like he's a skilled biochemist. He's made a lot of bioweapons in his day. But that he's not like a real spy. And you can still see the beryllium patch on Kirk. They kept it on him through all of these shots.
I didn't even like look for that. That's good.
Yeah, Klingons are awful at internment. But just like we expect to see these characters at in their uniforms at all times, we don't really question it because we're like, oh look, it's they're in their uniforms. Of course they're in the uniforms. They're always in their uniforms. Why would they have prison jumpsuits for this? Klingons don't give a shit. And it also gives us the impression that these guys haven't shaved or showered or had any sort of
exactly. Like there's no like, hey, we're gonna schedule a trial. It's like, nope, we're going to your trial. Wait a minute, you just found us. Yep. We're speeding this along.
Might as well have Klingon pushing them around on a dolly because
exactly. and so this is our first sense of betrayal, right? Like someone had access to the logs that quickly.
Yeah,
like this is his personal log, and somehow this very fast trial, they got this evidence, and even humans are like, well, the United Federation of Planets is like, what the hell? Where's this coming from? I thought we could trust this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And Kirk doesn't shake away from it. He's like, hey, look, I spoke those words, but he doesn't kind of justify them in any way, which maybe he could have done. Also, Worf should have said, hey, wait, don't answer that.
And like the cool thing about this scene, Michael Dorn is just doing some mad dog. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying? Mad dogging this guy?
Yeah, he's just imagining like opening his head like a melon.
One day I'm going to be on Deep Space Nine. I'll be able to murder every Klingon with me.
Then I'll be respected. I'll be respected by all Klingon culture. Anyway,
I do like that some of his objections do get sustained. Like this is not a one-sided show trial, despite what people say about it.
Yeah. And so this is kind of where we get like this frame job. Kirk was picked specifically because he's a maverick renegade. And, he's been disciplined before. And this guy, like the way he he shakes, he's like, answer now.
Yeah.
But he's like having fun, like yelling at Kirk, and Kirk can't but that's a good retort thing. Hey, I can't confirm things I hadn't seen.
This whole scene is just so solid.
Also, Worf's still not doing anything. Like, I feel like he should be like saving his client.
We've done some cuts back and forth where he's like, "Your Honor, please." And like we're done. He's objected. We get it. There you go.
And see, this is interesting. Look at who figures it out first. McCoy's like, they're setting us up. Like the spy knows a frame job when he sees one, right?
Yeah, and
so
it's an effective scene that moves us forward, gives us a few little clues, and gives us a good Worf cameo. It's great times. And then we come back to Sulu because we haven't seen Sulu in a while.
Yeah, right. And so they definitely are able to sell this kind of OJ trial kind of aesthetic where everyone's watching this in real time. Like it's kind of, this is the hot news of Starfleet. Everyone's watching it on space YouTube.
Yeah. And again, there's lots of good little cuts here. Janice Rand, Sarek.
Yep.
This guy has, I forget his name. Admiral Cartwright. Yeah, he has no reaction because he's in on it. And I like that they keep reminding us about Admiral Cartwright.
Right, yeah, because he's going to be important later.
Yeah. And again...
Yeah, so, Worf's like, hey, listen, just don't throw the book at him. It's like, oh, I'm throwing the book. you see this hand? This hand didn't get me. I didn't get this hand by compassion.
This bead? I didn't get this bead for $1.99 at freaking Spencer's Gifts. I did, but it was a good deal.
It was a good deal. I mean, I suggest you all go to Spencer's Gifts. I'm not sponsored.
They are lit exactly like everything else in the Klingon homeworld. You'll love it.
Oh man, what would the Klingon Hot Topic look like? That'd be crazy. Just like a torture chamber, basically.
I don't imagine too differently. Yeah. There's literally mannequins on either side of him. No, those are dudes. I think those are dudes.
Yeah. I'm sentencing you to the space gulag.
Again, these little cuts are great as he does the sentencing.
I really do want, like, just, it doesn't have to be every judge, but at least some circuit of judge to have a gavel in which when he bangs on it, sparks come out. I mean, just have a little style, you know?
If we cut off one of Kavanaugh's hands, is that going to be a compromise for the left?
I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
So, I like that these guys in their reactions give us exactly what Repente is, and like 8 words of dialogue, something like that.
Right.
Right,
and like, this is Spock's the first one to yeah, exactly. He's the first one to get us going. Like, yeah, no, that's a big hit, but we gotta put on our Sherlock Holmes caps and get this going.
Yeah, literally our Sherlock Holmes caps. The camera moves around. This has all been one shot from her on out. I just love the camera movements around the bridge. They're just great. This is a really small space to shoot in. They had to remake the set because I know we said this happened last time, but they pulled the old sets from Star Trek V out to do something in storage, and they left them out in the rain. They got ruined again, so they had to rebuild them from scratch again.
That wasn't an ancestor of yours. That was the fucking dude that wrote Sherlock. What's his name? Sir
Arthur Conan Doyle.
Arthur Conan Doyle, yeah.
So,
which was a pseudonym, I think.
Maybe in the alternate universe of Star Trek, Sherlock Holmes is a real guy that he's descended from, but he's obviously not, because Data was in the holodeck studying his works, like in season 3 or whatever. And also he has the pipe. And you know what? Let's not talk about Data and Sherlock Holmes anymore. Let's
not do that. We don't want Data to come steal the show from Spock here. What's interesting here, though, is that we have kind of an analog versus digital sort of conflict, don't we? Because we remember Spock saying, our logs say we fired twice.
Yeah.
But we have Scotty saying, I know the ship like the back of my hand. All of our weapons are accounted for. We didn't fire. Done. Yeah. It's like, well, that's interesting. We have a digital log saying we did a thing, and everyone trusts digital now. And we have a guy who's been doing this entire life saying, nah, couldn't happen. And so that's our mystery. Yeah.
A guy who's apparently so good at this, he doesn't have to wear a uniform anymore.
It's like, hey, it's like, did you know that Scotty's out of uniform? Like, you're going to tell him? Yeah, I know. I'm not going to tell him.
Look, he's got the frilly collar on, okay? It's fine. Yeah. That's uniform.
That's all you, as long as you have as long as you have the collar. This is kind of a weird move. Kind of sitting on the rail in shorts when you're wearing what ostensibly is a coat. It's kind of like I always feel weird when I wear a coat and shorts, but my legs don't get cold, so I don't know.
So Nichelle Nichols makes it work, though. Yeah, we get a little bit from each of our supporting cast,
right?
Which is good because they're never the focus of these movies, God forbid. So I'm glad they get a little bit of something to do. And Spock kind of spells out our premise for us, our stakes and our goals in the Enterprise leg of this story. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, this is he's also kind of framing like, okay, this is what's going to happen. Where every time we cut back here now, it's going to be us unpeeling some of the mystery.
Yeah, and
which is good.
Spock throws to Saavik to pull her in because she isn't contributing a lot to these scenes. Because she's part of the conspiracy. She's trying to hide it. She's not trying to further this study anymore until she's put on the spot. And in fact, she's trying to... I'm not sure why she's trying to help keep them out of space dock, other than just to heighten the mystery and keep the Federation out of this.
Yeah, I mean, Valeris definitely, she even kind of throws off the smell a little bit later on during the mystery. I mean, she's the one that finds, one of the gravity boots.
Yeah, and that's a great scene. But I think this scene they credit happening Bridge on the River Kwai. It's your standard welcome to prison scene in any movie. Our prison's not like other prisons. It's bad.
Abandon all hope, all ye who enter.
Yeah, they couldn't shoot on location because of budget, so
they call it a literal gulag.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I've heard this speech before. Like, hey, we don't have to lock you up because there's no escape.
Yeah. And again, in space, if it's a planet, I mean, the only thing more secure is a space station that's a prison. So, like, I get you. Boy, it sucks to have that guy's job.
Yeah. I remember seeing, like, some bit of... Like, someone was telling a story about doing, like, some duty in Alaska. And he moved... Like, he had to go to, like, an outhouse from, like, his... It was from, like, the bathroom to, like, inside the bunks or something. But he forgot his clothes. Yeah. And he said he was literally worried about it, even though he'd only be out for like 10 seconds because it was so cold.
Yeah.
And this definitely sells that notion that it doesn't take you long to freeze out here.
Yeah. It's gruesome. And quick. It's a very effective scene. That's good. I did want to mention that the actors were one of the main costs for this production. And one of the things they wanted to do is this is the first time the Kirk and Spock in Starfleet Academy story got floated out as a serious movie topic. And they're like, okay, kind of, sort of, but we don't want to. And
I mean, I could have totally, I totally would have bought like political intrigue, like young cadets in Starfleet transition movie. That would have been good.
Yeah, well, it would have been like young Kirk, young Spock.
I see what you mean.
Which they ended up making in 2009. After a fashion. Props to them for putting up all the alien makeup for this scene. With enough hats and stuff to kind of, make it so that not everyone had to be an alien. But this is one of the most diverse scenes in Star Trek.
Yeah, and it's a prison.
Yeah. So it's also disappointing is that, like, this scene happens twice, essentially, right?
Yeah. I mean, this kind of shows either how little time they had to write or the inexperience of the writers, because, we definitely get a lot of, like, things audience members have already been trained to see. Like, if this was the first time this scene was ever being shot, you might need to explain a little bit more, because... beating the big guy in prison is how you survive or whatever.
Yeah.
But we don't need to be trained this scene. Like, hey, it's like, oh, we got a translator, and this dude's like hassling him for his jacket.
Yeah.
And his boots, I think. I don't know.
I like this for also being, a sequence of scenes that doesn't have the universal translator in there. So, I like
how she's like, hey, you want to hit this?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's a blunt. Like, I don't think that's a cigar.
Yeah, that is not a cigar reaction. This is Amon, by the way. A very big model in the 90s. Very pretty lady.
Yeah, she's a very pretty lady.
Yeah, giving us a good amount of that prettiness from under the makeup. Like, that's not necessary for me, but yeah.
Yes, Kirk, you've been set up. The spy already told you that at trial.
Yeah. Oh, man. Why do they need computer banks in the galley?
This is kind of funny, though. We have this big, like, I think she said 300-man search.
Yeah.
But if this were TNG, we would just ask the computer, hey, computer, find the boots. And the computer been like, oh, they're in Ensign blah, blah, blah's quarters. All right, thanks, computer.
Yeah.
Well, bring in Ensign blah, blah, transport to the brig. Mystery solved.
Asking a basic question that he shouldn't...
Yeah, he's like a commander. Shouldn't he know this?
Ostensibly commander of security. What, the one with the guns?
Oh, dang.
Because, like, what else is he doing?
Right.
So, like, I would have preferred that this be reversed, even if it makes Valeris look a little stupider. But it's a very good question. The scene has to happen because it sets us up for what happens later.
The scene has... I mean, it could even just be like you have 300 randos also searching. It's like, why couldn't one of the randos ask those questions? And Chekhov could have been one to explain it. And then, Ensign Science Officer, shoots his way of demonstration or something. I do like this, though. I like when everyone, like, comes up and, like, oh, whoa, we got a firefight? Like, no, shut up.
It's good. Fine. It's good. It's this nice little touch that works well. And it also gets the rest of our cast.
Everyone knows where everyone is. I know they were investigating in the kitchen, so I'm going to check the kitchen. Like, McCoy, let security deal with it. You're an engineer. Yeah. I mean, you're a big dude, but still.
I don't know. It's Scotty. If someone tried to shoot him with a phaser, he'd just shrug it off and punch them in half.
I mean, yeah, I would. Two people I would want in a bar fight: Scotty and Worf.
Yeah. I mean, throughout the entirety of the original series, Kirk's like, to do violence, it would be to question the very basics of our ethics. And Spock is like, I'm a pacifist. And Scotty's like, I already shot the torpedoes. I'm sorry. Like, Scotty was not the guy to mess with in the original series.
In the process of shooting, he's like, oh, what? Oh, we were still talking about it? I'm sorry.
His only accession to old age really is the fact that he didn't punch straight up through the deck plates to get in here. So,
right. And so here we go. This is the Kirk getting in more trouble with a strong man at prison.
I mean, it might as well be the same one.
Yeah. But this is really just to show us how much the guards don't care about his welfare, right? Even the friend that he just made was just like watching him do that. And then McCoy's like cheering him on, which is cute. So
he's just
McCoy.
In prison. Kirk's been in prison like a million times. But this is like
McCoy too.
Yeah,
I could they give each other a run for their money. I bet.
I mean, in the original series, they got nailed about the same amount. But this is like another big alien that starts a fight with Kirk for like no reason, and it's like it might as well be a continuation from the previous scene.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the very least, like give him like a. This is just so over the top.
Oh god, it's comedic. It's comedic, is what it is.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Why?
I mean, yeah, it is. This is kind of you have to have like certain beats in like an action movie. Like the '90s definitely like did this where
this is a Riker.
You couldn't have a pure action. You wanted to balance this action and comedy thing.
Yeah, and the thing is that I actually used that. I wanted to use that species in the Fate game of Star Trek that we ran. Because eventually our friend Richard was going to become the captain of the ship, and these guys were going to be the Bolnesians, which I think is stolen directly from Men in Black 2. And like the deal is they were going to rub their knees on a ship every time they got on board and call Grichtenagral. And
nice.
They'd be like, oh no, one of our guys rubbed their balls in your bulkheads before, so we don't respect you at all as a captain. And that was going to be like everything they do, every interaction with these guys, is going to be like, are you guys going to come aboard our ship and rub your knees on our bulkheads? Like, no. And every time they were going to do that. It was going to be great.
Yeah, that is pretty good. I mean, like, it's a classic space joke, right? He's an alien. Hope it doesn't mind me kicked him in the knee. Like, what makes you think that's his knee you kicked?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's kind of like the closing of our, like, comedic bit in the action movie.
Okay. Right.
Yep. And this is kind of neat too. You have two characters who have essentially been in prison before, and this is very much I was reading a book about World War II and how it was by a Holocaust survivor, and he was talking about like how they would sleep together and how it was very crowded and they would always kind of just sleep on pallets, and this definitely is evocative of that. And this is kind of what we get from Kirk. He's really selling this whole not so much I've learned from my ways bit, but he's being introspective. He's saying, hey, I used to hate the Klingons because what they did to my boy, but now that he's kind of seen kind of this human is lamenting a Klingon tragedy, he's showing some remorse for it, for sure. But then he kind of flips out on his head, right? He's like, hey, this, like if I felt that way, I'm an old like Klingon battle veteran, but that means that someone felt worse than me, and that's who's running this gig. And so we have, you could say, our own, like another mystery. So there's like a mystery within a mystery. We have the first mystery of like who killed Gorkin. Well, I guess it's the same mystery coming from two different angles. I really don't know what this deal is with like the hands falling asleep thing, because I don't think that was her. I think like it was another hand grabbing a rock. Oh, that might have been McCoy's hand. Okay, McCoy's hand probably grabbed the rock, which makes sense because he's a spy, right? Yeah. But, so like, I feel like McCoy McCoy's about to say, hey, look, this is moving a little too fast for me. And he's 100% right. Like, as the spy, knowing statecraft when he sees it, he's like, hey, man, a really pretty girl is, like, giving you a method to escape on day 1 of prison. Chill out, man. Like, I feel like we need to, like, pump our brakes and, like, figure out a plan.
Yeah, well, on the other hand, Kirk is like, okay, counterpoint, every 3rd episode of the original series. And he's not
like,
wrong. Like, traditionally, the honeypot is how Kirk gets out of these things.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm a little older, but I still got it. McCoy's like, do you, though?
Yeah, look at him. He's, what is it with you? He's like, there is a procedure for escaping a prison, sir, and you never follow it.
Oh, yeah, so we got Christian Slater here. This was supposed to be Janice Rand, but Christian Slater wanted to be in Star Trek. And he was a huge deal at this point in time. So,
yeah, I mean, like, I didn't know why they were outlining this person, like, in darkness, and it's like a reveal.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. I mean, he's Christian Slater becomes just the guy that tells Zulu something.
Yeah, and then Zulu gets to yell at Christian Slater. It's great.
Yeah. He's like, did I stutter? Well, yeah, here he goes. Do you ever hear a problem?
It's so good to see Sulu have command. And George Takei pitched like a Sulu series for a long time after this.
I would have watched that series 100%.
You know,
like it
was good.
I think it would have been good.
Fair enough. So yeah, and here we get down to finally investigating the transporter and our huge transporter-based plot. But whatever. At least Chekhov finds it. Chekhov, you know, he calls back to being Spock's protege back in the original series, doing science stuff. Yeah.
He's got his own little, I guess, portable lab that he, like, on the spot makes a slide for.
It's important.
I don't know exactly how that happens. If it didn't look like he put it up there, but maybe he did. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how he got that perfect slide out of a bit of.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you remember your biology in college, but it's not easy to make slides. It's kind of an art.
Like he leans down onto the, it's not rebar, I forget what it's called. But like the no skid, and he's like, a little bit of Klingon blood. Let me get up my fancy traveling microscope. Oh wait, I have a slide of evidence in here. Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, turns out like Chekhov has always been a microscope enthusiast.
So in TNG they had they just reclimate their clothes. They put their clothes back into the replicator.
I thought there was something like that. Like, I mean, they had... I thought I remember something to that effect, to where they had some technology that invalidated this notion of having multiples of things to wear.
I guess not. I guess that hasn't happened yet. So, oh man, I love this bit. Crewman Dax, which is weird because Dax is going to be the name of a main cast member, of a main, character in Deep Space Nine. So it's just so weird they reused the Dax name. But,
I mean, it's kind of a spacey sounding name. I kind of get that.
I guess.
Just a reminder, Kirk said, hey, go to whatever elevator shaft if you want to escape. And Kirk he is not scrupulous about any method, any plot he gets involved in.
Yeah. See, this is the biggest plot hole I find in this show, which is that Kirk is somehow put off by diddling a potentially male shapeshifter.
Yeah.
I'm like, look at that reaction shot. Shatner nails it, but he shouldn't.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have to.
That's kind of a quintessential Shatner impression. Everyone's willing to roast this dude.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is like, Spock is like the one that like does that whole like comical like look at his feet Chekhov.
Yeah. And it's a
Chekhov's
good line.
like, I did it. I did the human pun thing, and oh man, no, I didn't look. Oh well.
And again, Chekhov does the callback to Cinderella. I mean, props to the conspirators for not framing someone who would get in trouble. They framed someone who wouldn't be actually framed for the crime.
A conscientious conspirator.
Yeah, because they're still Starfleet. They're still ostensibly good people. They just believe that peace with the Klingons is bad. And also they want to murder a bunch of people to make that happen. This is kind of... I feel like a space gulag doesn't make sense. Especially when you're not doing manual labor. You're just, all right, take this
very high density laser they could easily kill everyone else with. And mine stuff.
Those are Predator lasers. They're digging for Arnold Schwarzeneggers.
It turns out before TNG, Arnold Schwarzeneggers were a high value currency.
We found a vein, sir. Yeah, so it's good. And then they go to the end of the thing, 3 feet away from a bunch of Cleons, and escape to add tension.
And like they already kind of told us, like, hey, like, we don't care about you, so we're not going to really watch you. It doesn't matter. So, I mean,
the mining
props
is
to that kid being sultry at like knowing how to be sultry at a very young age, or at least being kind of, maybe not sultry is the right word, but being like cheeky.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, that's good. We're moving our plot forward here, maybe regardless of some of the obstacles we might usually have. A great use of sets to save us on shape-shifting CGI budget. Of just doing a
for
cut.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
And speaking of throwbacks to the original series, that last set of caves look like a throwback to the original series. But
yeah, maybe so.
Yeah. And yeah.
You can see how McCoy's like gets more and more uncomfortable with this whole thing as it kind of goes on, and you want to believe, or at least like I feel like you're supposed to believe that Shatner is kind of in on this. Like he knows that it's a trap, but he's doing it anyway because it'll get him closer to his goal regardless.
Right. And that's how Kirk's playing it. Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, he's putting both himself and in a lot of danger. Like this is a very narrow hole to thread a needle through.
Yeah, but it is his only line of play.
Yeah.
Which, kind of smacks a little bit of reading the plot, of reading the script. But, a lot of action movies are kind of like that. We're going to do this one improbable thing, and then it's going to pay off.
Right.
Which, fair knock.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting to see these kind of old school aerial shots, like in contrast with like the current kind of like drone photography that we have now.
Yeah. I do want to mention that McCoy is a true Southerner. This is the second time he's been trapped on a frozen waste of a planet and just been like, leave me behind, I'm gonna die, it's too cold. I'm like,
I hate this, it's so cold.
Last time I think it was with Spock, but as someone who I feel the same way when I have to wait for the bus at 5 a.m. I'm just like, oh yeah, just go on without me. I won't make it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna make it.
So, it's good.
But yeah, it's kind of funny, and this is where it's kind of weird that he says like, Spock put a Berlin patch on my back. It's like, well, why don't you leave it there? Like, wouldn't you want it? What if they did see it? Like, wouldn't you want to put it like on the inside or something? Like, just do some kind of hiding it.
Yeah, like, why do it surreptitiously? We got to fool the audience. That's not a good reason to do it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Spock is like, oh yeah, it's a small piece of beryllium over there in the Klan Empire. We detect that now. It's fine. We could only detect the beryllium once it left the transporter field, which Marta led us outside of, even though this was all a setup.
Yeah.
Which we didn't have to go all the way outside of. I
mean, in theory, he's like, it's so cold. It's like we've only been walking for 10 minutes.
It's super cold, though. I'm from Georgia.
But I mean, if you're on a prison, whether or not your plot is to kill your people or to save them, it seems like you got to do it away from the cameras, right?
Yeah, that's fair. So maybe that's what they're doing. But so we do go through all this stuff. We're told that there's actually a ray of hope that explains what Spock's doing on the thing.
I mean, we're told that, and the orchestral music. So I mean,
yeah. Okay, so this scene is awful. It's bad. Like every fan, despite admittedly Uhura having no background in this, every fan watches this scene and goes, "But obviously Uhura can speak Klingon."
Right.
Like, there's no canonical basis for that, but we all just know it. We all know that her
okay, so here's the gig. The whole premise of this movie is you've been fighting the Klingons. You've been in this Cold War with the Klingons this whole time. Yeah. And Uhura, a linguist, are you telling me that she wouldn't learn the language of the most popular enemy we have? Like, come on.
She's not even a linguist. Like, she should be. That's what we expect of her.
I thought she was a linguist.
I don't know what the canonical basis for that is. But,
okay, then.
Like,
interesting.
The fact that everyone expects her to be a linguist without even asking says something.
Yeah.
They've communicated that to us in some way.
Yeah.
Somehow, that's been communicated to us. So when she suddenly isn't, so that we can get like a funny scene about Cleon, like, what the heck?
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of interesting too. That I mean, it's a decent scene as far as like everyone.
Thanks, Scotty. She can read words. Dick.
Scotty's helping. He can help. They all have their big books, and so they're all trying to figure out. This scene is a little clumsy, like, but it has some good moments. Like
why does the extra lady have to laugh? Why does she have to tell them to fake it?
She's like, I'm done with this.
Whatever. They got past the border, and that's why the Federation can't ever get past the Klingon border before, because they didn't.
Yeah, because they never bothered to learn the language. and now they refuse to on principle.
But I mean, whatever. Like I do kind of get that there's a border station where the guards are like super, don't give a crap, just like the Soviet Union, where like they're not like patriotic, they're just trying to get through their shift or whatever. But like, it's such a rough scene.
Oh, is that what the portmanteau of chameleon and oid is? A shapeshifter?
Like, dude, this is at least the third shapeshifter you run into. This is going to be the third time you've seen someone turn into Captain Kirk. This ain't nothing new, man.
Yeah. I feel like Shatner pitched this scene. He's like, listen, this would be like my last fight scene. The only one that can fight me is me.
Yeah. The thing is, he starts a fight, and then he's just like, we're just gonna chill out. McCoy, hover over them for a minute.
Yeah.
But he explains how.
And I'm a little incensed that he's like, oh, I knew it the whole time. I'm like, McCoy had to explain to you you've been set up twice, so.
In this campfire, a signal flare telling them where to find us. Are you going to turn it off now? No, we're not. I'm going to continue to monologue about how smart I am. I was like, why?
Yeah.
That's McCoy being useless, admittedly.
Yeah. Yeah, and then he's got a glass jaw. I don't know. I guess he's just like, I'm too old to fight. Let Kirk handle this one.
Yeah. All right. So the joke about the lifelong ambition is a call out to, at this point, the public is becoming aware of Shatner's ego.
Yeah.
So it is just like a call out for Shatner always wanting to kiss himself. So.
Yeah, I figured that, like, it had to have been a call out to that, because, and he wakes up long enough to get rolled over. I never really understood like the fight choreography rolling bit. It just, I haven't been in a ton of fights, but I haven't really seen that being kind of a thing that happens in fights. Like, you kind of tussle, but never like in a linear direction for a long period of time.
I mean, no. The linear direction for a long period of time is definitely a contrivance of Hollywood,
Yeah.
So, more rough split screen.
I do like how he's like, we're going to do this whole thing. And he's like, well... he's like, turns out I don't mind killing both of you.
Yeah, that's the joke, is that Kirk is like, I tricked you. He's like, no, I was just getting rid of the witnesses. You were transparent. It's a good inversion. It's a good inversion of the trope.
Yeah, I think so.
Again, it plays it just long enough that it's fun. And then we invert another trope where he's about to monologue.
Yeah, he rolls right into another trope, right? He's like, all right, I guess I can monologue for you guys before you die.
That's great. And again, this is kind of how you subvert expectations in a movie. See, what you do is...
Yeah, and so this is where we get like, okay, this is we're in high camp. Oh, it's too cold. We can't go back there. Like, never mind the fact that you could transport any one of them and, like, mind meld with them to get the exact plot. No, we can't do that either.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We have to, like, there's so many things we could have done in that scene, but like, oh, it's too cold. We can't go down that line of logic.
Yeah.
I was wondering why I felt like this was like the briefing room, and now I know.
It is.
I totally felt like it was. And they do the whole hiding things in event bit, which makes you feel like they should have known that. like if I was going to hide something on the Enterprise, I would check all the vents, all the Jeffries tubes, like first shot. Like that's kind of what I would do.
That's where you go. And then everything kind of comes together at a really convenient time. Like, there's no reason for Scotty to discover those uniforms at that exact moment. But it does so that the plot can all run together. Yeah. And I like we also have this kind of deal. It's like, yes, the real enemy. And it's like, and one of his subordinates is like, hey, don't worry about it. He's like, you think I'll underestimate my enemy? Are you sure? And he's like, fine. These guys are like the protagonists, kind of. Mr. Klingon, please set course. Mr. Klingon. But maybe it's just like a little, maybe it's just a little fun. I don't know. Yeah. See, and these are the Enterprise D corridors. These are the corridors from TNG with a little bit of extra stuff on them, some pipes overhead and big stickers. Yep. I like that though, because it gives us a little bit of like architectural narrative, right? There's a certain subconscious feel to some of these scenes because of that. Because that this is. Yeah, it's a good point. Like, I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah. So. And like, isn't this movie supposed to be like a transition? Like we're transitioning from the old way to the new way? I don't think it was designed that way, but de facto it is. The next movie is going to be more about that transition, obviously. Good old Burke and Samo. Burke and Samo. I'll miss those two racist douchebags. Yeah, we just hate Burke and Samo. So yeah, they were all three of them were part of the plot. Yeah. And now we're intrigued. Like we might recognize these guys from earlier. Yeah. And now Kirk and Spock are going to do a plan. Yeah, they're going to like, let's set up a plan. See? That's the big window where Geordi sits. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so this, I don't understand this. They launched this whole like, hey, listen, Yo and Burke and Samo repeat court reporter to sickbay. I don't understand. Well, because they're announcing on the ship they need a reporter to take their depositions. Like Burke and Samo survived, and now they're testifying. Okay then. Gotcha. And so, okay, I wasn't quite sure. I just knew that it was kind of like, hey, we're going to let them know, we're going to let them think that we somehow survive, like, not survive them, revive them. And this is the TNG's round sickbay. Yeah. The bed's at. So, anyway. And it's a good it's weird how like the lights don't automatically come on, but sickbay is dark every now and again, so I guess that's fine. I mean, Spock and Kirk are behind this. They're dramatic bitches. Yeah, they're a bunch of queens, both of them. And Spock's like, you gotta shoot me. If you're logical, you gotta shoot me. Yeah. And Kirk is like, hey, look, Spock, you didn't tell me you were going to provoke her. You didn't tell me you're going to double dog dare the Vulcan to shoot you. Can't, yeah. It's the kind of thing you mentioned before the plan, Spock. You can't put Bay in trouble. But Jim, I am Bay. Yeah. He's like, don't hurt Bay, please. I really would rather you don't shoot. Having Spock. But he's mad that like he got one over, huh? Yeah. And he's not angry. He's disappointed. And he always slaps faces when he's disappointed. This is my disappointed face. But no, he's pretty angry. And that's one of the things. It's a good way of using Spock's unemotionality to kind of give us some narrative grip. Subtext. Hey, what's up? So we've got everybody. We got our friends. We put out a Facebook invite for everyone to come to the bridge. Yeah, everyone. We're doing a good old-fashioned soapbox trial. Let's everyone report to the bridge. So we're gonna execute her if she doesn't tell us what we want to know. The deal is you monologue a bit, and we try to get information from you, and then we maybe do a little bit of I want to say mind rape. Yeah, I mean it's weird. Like
even if it wasn't, even if like she's like, I give you consent to go look for it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the super double Vulcan mind meld, like there's no part of this that really is part of like what Star Trek would do, right? Like this isn't like, oh well, we're gonna rip our answers out of your mind. I mean, this is kind of like a sanitized torture, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much like justified interrogation via rape. And that's
right.
Like, it is a mental violation. It is played that way. It is unsettling. It is gross. And it's played heavily. And it is really jarring. And it meets some narrative needs. Like, we want to see a mind meld because we want to see Spock do Vulcan mind magic because this is the last movie.
Yeah.
And they need the information, so they need a clever way to get the information. Yeah. And they're not going to go after her with the rubber hose, or like a car battery or nothing. So this is the answer. And it's just gross and bad.
Yeah. He doesn't even like run it by, like, I guess he is ostensibly like the ethics officer. He doesn't even like say, hey, is this justified? Like, I'm questioning myself. He's like, nope, time to use a Vulcan mind meld. And so he does it, and when she's kind of going through this, you can, she's resisting.
She tries to pull away, and he forces himself on her.
And then not only, but like during that, she's like making kind of these mewling sounds, like it's not a comfortable experience, and that's when he doubles down. I was like, come on, man, damn.
She's resisting, and I thought Kirk gave Spock a nod for that, but also I guess Picard has this memory now.
Yeah, not all award ceremonies and wine, was it?
Okay, so what I thought was a rare and graceful process was a trick to get out of ghost cowboys, erasing Kirk's memory of a girl, and then mental assault. Okay,
this is what he meant by cowboy diplomacy.
Yikes. Historical realism. Yeah. So I just, it's not good. And man, the scene is really long. I thought we could just sort of talk through it. Just kind of call it out as being bad, and the fact that it appears to know that it's bad, and then kind of...
so we get Admiral Cartwright and a few others, and then when we need to know like where the assassination is going to take place, like he's like doubling down right now, and she's feeling it, like she's emoting as much. Even like Scotty's horrified.
Right. They have a reaction shot to show that we're not supposed to be like settled by this. They're not cool with this.
Yeah.
And we're like, see, shot from Nichelle Nichols, and you're like, come on.
But I mean, we're not going to talk about it either.
Yeah.
He's like, her mind is barren. She can't do math anymore.
Even Nimoy has like some emotional upset from this before Scotty sets him up for that boss ass death line, and you're like, okay, back into the real movie, not the weird movie.
Dead before.
Yeah, it's like, oh damn, that's a fucking bum ass line, because he's been dead before. He died in the second movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's no big, Scotty. And Scotty's like, you fucking telling me how to put my contra in Dr. McCoy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're like, oh yeah, we could have just called Sulu. Hey Sulu. And he's like, oh yes. I, Sulu, knew all of this. One of my crewmen is Christian Slater. He's got like 1 degree of bacon separation. He knows everything.
Yeah. He puts back in the torture metaphor. He's like, all right, I've beat her up and she's only giving us the names. He's like, move on to the dental pick. And he's like, all right, cool. And he's like, he's about to rip out a tooth. Hold on, wait. We should ask Sulu.
But yeah, so this is all coming together. And Sulu's like, okay, we're in Beta Quadrant. Like last week, we were within shockwave distance of the moon around the Klingon homeworld. But it's been like, maybe 3 or 4 days since then. So we're going to warp over to Kittimer, and then we'll meet you there. And Cleon Warbird, I don't know, we'll make it. It'll be fun.
And I mean, this kind of also drives home like the notion that like in the military, this is Vampire Spock. I prefer dark.
Yeah, I guess dining on ashes, they say. He's brooding.
Dining on ashes. I've never heard that line.
Yeah. Me neither. Not outside of this movie.
Yeah.
But it seems apropos. This is sort of the heart of our movie here, where we sit down and learn our very important lesson.
Yeah, and so this is where, Beige really kind of, beat himself up, and Kirk's like, don't worry about it. You took one for the team. Everything's fine.
Yeah, and each one of them had expectations about the future. Again, Spock's link with Saavik directly plays into the themes of this movie, so we believe it a little more. It goes a little deeper than that. Getting back to his whole Pardek thing.
Right.
And so, what their expectations for the future were, aren't being met. And yet here we are. They think they've screwed up everything.
Right. Yeah, they're both kind of like limiting their own kind of big conflicts that they've had to face. And then they were talking about both of them were extremists. And then now they have... This is kind of where I thought it was maybe like a transitory narrative, where he's talking about like, hey, aren't we too old to be like being useful maybe?
Yeah, and that's a joke from Spock. And Spock is like, Kirk is like, I mean, all we can do is the best that we can do. We're going to get older. That's going to happen. And I know I say it all the time, but I love that this series lets its actors get older.
I'm not human. And then like Captain Kirk responds like, everybody's human. Like, come on. You're telling a reconstituted alien that he's everyone's human. It's fine.
On a narrative level, all of these characters are human. They all have flaws. They all have things to learn and perspectives. They all represent humans who are us. But in text, to say everyone's a human, like, kind of falls back to Azet Bor's sort of thing.
Yeah. So this is President Human giving a bomb-ass speech with his like super cool shades.
And again, the reason he has the shades, it got cut out of here, is because of the blindness. But you don't really know that if you don't have that one cut scene.
Right. For sure.
So I really like the Kinmer Conference. I really like the Federation President. This whole scene, this action scene, this final capstone climax of our film, I guess. Yeah. That's pretty good.
And, what's really weird, too, is just that, we have this kind of bridge scene, and this all uses, like, submarine shorthand to sell it. And it just, I don't feel like it works at all. Like, all of the ship and submarine metaphors that we've been using for space travel doesn't make sense, because like it's based on sound and other things moving through a vacuum, and it's like, what? No.
I want to get the greatest quote of this movie is, let us redefine progress to mean that just because we can do a thing, it does not mean that we must do that thing.
That's good.
That's a big idea. And again, in the scene where it's like, we could totally roll over the Klingon Empire, but we're not going to.
Silent running.
That has more meaning.
There we go.
Yeah, she says they're rigged for silent running, which is reasonable because they're a cloaked ship.
There's no way to be loud running in space.
There's
nothing.
They can emit like navigational buoys and have sensors going off and communications. They can be emitting.
It's like, all right, listen, I need you to go from here to the Klingon world and warp 2, and about every 2 or 3 parsecs, just throw out some fireworks.
Guys, that thing's gonna keep blinking blue. Like that's literally what the warp core does. That slow pan makes it seem like they're all waiting for it to change. Whatever.
Right. But I mean that's the parlance of submarine battle, right? Everyone's like they've disengaged their eyes and they're only using their ears.
I guess. I see what you're saying. My beef with this fight scene is that their goal is not to get in orbit of Kittimer and beam people down. Their goal is to just hang out here and find the cloaked bird of prey.
Which seems so stupid. Like who cares? Like, just go save everyone at the conference, and they're like, oh, by the way, they have a cloaked bird of prey that can, like, fire torpedoes.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
So the way conflicts work is you're trying to accomplish something, and then there's an obstacle, and then you have to engage in conflict to remove that obstacle. And to complete that goal. And here, I kind of feel like they're so close to the planet that, like, they could just make a move on it to beam people down as part of like their tactical outlay, but instead they kind of stop and do not a dogfight, but a submarine warfare bit.
Yeah.
Where they're destroyers on the surface and the submarine's underwater, and it keeps repositioning itself, even though they don't tell us that. So they don't know where it's firing from, so they can't hit it.
Right. And, like, this is just kind of a fight for a fight's sake.
Yeah.
You could have even, like, if you wanted it to be narrative, you could have, like, done this whole, like, oh, these two last war generals or whatever have to give them a warrior's ending, or we have to fight.
I'm sorry. That shot we just cut away from is literally the guy in, like, a car park or something. But yeah.
But yeah, like, it would have been as silly as what we get, but at least it would have, like, some narrative, like, hook.
And the thing is, our heroes have decided to fight. But the way they've decided to fight is to just cruise around and get their asses kicked. They're not even like, fire a pattern into this grid section to narrow them down where they could be.
Yeah.
Or, torpedoes or lay mines or nothing like that.
Shakespeare. Just get, not like, it's like two barbs, right? Like, was he looking at the screen just now as he was quoting Shakespeare?
Christopher Plummer is allowed to look at this camera, okay?
This is just so over the top that they're doing submarine in space while the bad guy is quoting Shakespeare. It just really... And then we have a car metaphor on top of all of it.
Right.
Like, hey, why don't we just do, like, can we just shove things up the tailpipe? No, it doesn't have to have a tailpipe.
They're doing an analogy so that the viewer understands it. And I'll get into the gaseous anomalies later, but Spock asks McCoy to do some surgery. And we're like... Yeah. And what part of reconfiguring a torpedo is surgery, guys? And it's like, no part of it. The part where you're reconfiguring a weapon.
Yeah, Spock always knew that McCoy knew how to deal bombs. He's like, oh, but we're in mixed company. Hey, let's go perform, quote, surgery.
Yeah, my track of that story would be that Spock knew ever since he held McCoy's contract, and now he's kind of acknowledging it, and he's going to use his own engineering science skills and McCoy's, like, spy skills to, like, reconfigure a torpedo to find a cloaked thing.
Some 1701A battle damage.
Yeah. I also want to mention that Sulu just said, hey, we came back from studying gaseous anomalies. That was our last mission. And then Uhura's like, yeah, no, we have all that stuff to study gaseous emissions. I'm like, did you guys flip some pages in the plot around? Or did you both studying gaseous emissions? Were you guys just chilling at Earth? And then you had 6 months left to retire? Were you guys about to go study gaseous anomalies? Or did you... You know what? Never mind. Fine. You can find ions. I believe you can find ions in space. Congratulations.
Right.
So anyway.
And so whatever. I mean, this is just action scene. Look at this.
He's doing great. Like, again, people universally describe Christopher Plummer's acting in this movie as chewing on scenery, if not eating it entirely. And I think that's fair.
It's 100% fair.
He is making a forgettable Star Trek villain memorable.
Yeah. And also, why haven't we gotten, like, the shields up at all? Like, couldn't we have taken at least 1 or 2 of those hits via the shields? Like, it feels like we didn't.
They had shields up, and they're like, shields are reducing the damage. They're soaking it. They're soaking the damage, Derek, to use a 90s term.
They're just rolling ones is what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what they're fucking doing. I like that they're riding the torpedo as it goes down the hatch.
Yeah.
It gives us attention. Funny. Everything's moving now. Now we have a plan.
Right,
and we're going forward. And McCoy's like, it's got a heartbeat. I'm like, yes, we get it. You're a doctor. People don't expect this.
It's like, hey, she's ready, Jim. Lock and load.
Yeah. Action-y.
Yeah.
He puts his foot on the table.
Yeah.
It's dramatic, though. Like, we get the little torpedo just kind of through space.
Yeah, it's like, where are they firing? Oh, they did a hook shot. Oh, no.
It's a homing torpedo. Like, oh, no, not clean clean gone. Anyway, he was our best spy inside the Cleon thing. So, yeah. So we get our 2 ships working together to shoot the thing. To blow the crap out of this dude.
Yeah, they just like, hey, I think they want to surrender. Nope, too late. Boom, boom, boom.
Right. It's a good thing this guy's a freaking perfectionist, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, right? He's like, I could take this shot, but I really want to get a better one.
He gets a beat on him. He's like, oh yeah. He gets a breath mint.
No security around the planet. Like, no one, like, making sure that no one gets... People could just run up with guns.
No one beams down. No one charges the room.
Yeah.
And then Kirk has to go up there and tackle the president.
Mr. President.
Yeah.
But he couldn't see anything, right? Because he was blind.
And they start pointing phasers at dudes.
And so this is another bit of camp that's hilarious. So we beat the bad guy. We have all of the bad folks. We're about to get all the bad folks in custody.
Yeah. And Admiral Kirk's like, arrest these dudes. And Spock's like, Uno, reverse card.
Yeah, you fall into my trap card, Admiral.
And they send Scotty after this dude.
Yeah, by himself. By himself.
Like, look.
He's like, Scotty, how do you feel about some wet work? Yeah, I've done it before. I can do it again.
We know Scotty's a badass, but like he doesn't scream fitness to the audience, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's true. But I mean, he just had to walk briskly to a certain spot, I guess. And so after that, everything is fine. We could just like everyone go back to your offense. No, we have the big Kirk speech, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you gotta have a Kirk speech. You gotta explain everything to everybody. It's about the future, Derek. People are afraid of the future sometimes.
Your father called the future the undiscovered country.
Right. And in the text of I believe it's either Hamlin or Macbeth, the undiscovered country is death. So whenever Gorkin says, the undiscovered country, and I was like, to death? He's like, no, the future. The future is the undiscovered country. In this interpretation, I'm doing a thing with canon. And that guy, he's been after Kirk, and he has to stew. And he's like, oh, Kirk saved the Cleon Chancellor. Oh, so angry.
And everybody claps, and it's like, okay, I just, I gave a big sigh at this. The one guy's straight arm clapping, the other one's clapping normally.
I love that guy. That guy is like, I'm playing an alien. I'm going to be in Star Trek, and I'm going to make it alien.
I don't care what anyone does. I'm clapping straight arms, baby.
He's committed.
The one guy standing on a table? Like, there's only one guy standing on a table. Okay.
Yeah. And then they stand up in the front.
Oh, no, there's a couple.
Yeah. To pose. I'm like, what are you posing for?
Yeah, there's no cameras.
Whatever.
Oh, no, we're about to sign something in the law that means there'll always be logs. That means there'll always be a photo opportunity.
Okay. But the McCoy line here. Once again, we've saved the galaxy as we know it. And the best part is they're not going to press charges. I mean, come on. It's a bit schlocky, but come on.
I mean, yeah. And it makes sense that this spot, everyone kind of carries, and everyone has like a one-liner, right?
Yeah.
As they walk back onto the bridge doing their like enlisted jobs.
Yeah, I love how this ship needs the entire crew for an interrogation on the bridge. Needs 6 people for regular operations.
Right.
Saying goodbye to Sulu and Rand.
Yeah, going on their own way.
So yeah, the weird thing is that this is the last time that DeForest Kelley, Walter Koenig are in a Star Trek thing.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Walter Koenig's going to be back. So this is DeForest Kelley's last appearance and Nichelle Nichols' last appearance. The rest of them are going to be back later in different ways.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So it's a franchise, man. I keep saying this thing could have been a Marvel Cinematic Universe, but
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, the MCU was not innovative, but it was new. Like it wasn't it was innovative. The way they handled all those movies hadn't really been done before.
Yeah.
And then this is the peak sassy spot right here.
Yeah. Go to hell.
Like, I wanted to just say it once, just let it roll around on the tongue.
Yeah.
But I'm not human. Go to hell. Yeah.
So, yeah. And instead of just saying, all right, setting course for us being retired, he says...
So how about a little light treason, stealing government property?
It's metaphorical. It's saying, hey, look, there's still adventures out there, and we're still going to find them. And it may not be on the Enterprise, but we're going to go and we're going to do that. So
you know what I've built up an appetite for? Exploration. Aren't we supposed to decommission this in like 3 months? Exploration, and we're never coming back.
So, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you got Sulu on the Excelsior over there. You got an empty spot for Sulu on the chair there. And I guess that lady died. I don't know, whatever. And
that chair looks pretty beat up for sure.
Yeah, I know, right? But like you have a lot of interesting characters that people want to see, and you could use them to springboard onto other things. TNG's happening. TNG's about to have a spinoff.
Yeah.
There's a lot you could do with this universe because it's a big universe.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that though. So as they sail off into the sun, Final thoughts.
Like, I mean, I figured they're just gonna like, all right, listen, we're gonna decommission this very fast moving, very cool ship that we've been around. Let's go do a few tricks or something before we're done.
It does have a hole in it, but yeah,
it does has a few holes.
So yeah. Final thoughts on not just Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, but Star Trek, the original series. This is it. This is it for 17-1.
So I had a lot of fun. I had more fun with the original series than I thought I would. At the very beginning, when we kind of had talked about doing some sort of kind of video analysis podcast, I didn't think you were going to pitch Star Trek, but I should have known. And I was like, okay. And I kind of thought we would have started with the original series. And then when you were like all the way back to TNG, and when you said we're going to go all the way back to the original series, I'm like, really? I'm like, okay, that feels like a long way. But this was fun. There was a lot of good bits here. I liked how a few of the things that we enjoy, like McCoy's a spy, just kind of happened naturally. The triumvirate of McCoy, Kirk, and Bay. Yeah. And, there were a lot of fun things on this journey for sure.
Yeah. I recently found some folders named Unnamed Derek Project that were kind of how this started. So it's interesting how some things take off and they work, and some things don't.
Yeah, but, and I have to say that I'm glad. Like, I kind of built up the whole like, hey, look, I was a little unsure how we started, but I'm glad we started where we did. This was fun.
Yeah, it's if it's one thing you learned from Star Trek, is that beginnings can be kind of rough.
Right.
But you can get better. You find your voice. You find your feet.
Yeah.
I'm currently remastering some season 1 episodes, and that is so bad. Like you and I talked about, working on making the Beige and The Bold episodes better, or reshooting some 17-1 episodes, kind of doing a live remake. And I really wish we'd done the live remake. The Beige and The Bold episodes are getting better, but remastering those just from the original tracks is rough. We started from a rough place, and we've come really far.
When would you say, like, we found our footing? Like, what? Like, I mean, I feel like we found our footing in the original series. I want to say it took us maybe a season and a half. But would you say that we found our footing, like, sooner or later?
I think, from an editing perspective and making my life easier and making these not sound like garbage, that would be the original series. And I say we haven't quite jumped the shark yet. So, I honestly the best way to tell would just be to ask our listener. Yeah, but that's it. We are going to see a lot of these characters in the future, which is weird, but we will.
All right.
Even Colonel West, which when the sniper falls through the window, and they're like,
"Oh wow, Industrial Light and Magic." Sorry, I didn't know that they were part of this.
Yeah, they were part of this. They've been using these guys for a while, Industrial Light and Magic. In fact, they didn't use them for the last movie to save money. And then when they had a budget pinch on this one, they're like, should we not use Industrial Light and Magic? And they're like, no, we are definitely using Industrial Light and Magic. Yeah. We're not doing that again. So
the assassin with Cartwright.
Yeah, right. Saying? So the assassin gets pushed out the window by Scotty, and they go up to him. They're like, oh, this isn't Cleon blood. And they rip off his face, and it's Colonel West.
Oh wow!
But because they cut the scene with Colonel West, who's a Starfleet guy. Like that whole bit with the ripping off the guy's face, Mission Impossible style, and not having Cleon blood. Yeah, like that guy gets lost.
Yeah,
and the thing is that there's a part where Valeris goes, "How they conspired with us to kill their own chancellor. How trustworthy could they be?"
Oh wow!
And in the final scene, we see that it was literally a Starfleet guy who's going to pull the trigger on the Federation president.
Oh damn!
Yeah, so you're like, oh, look at that. Their bigotry and hatred is actually hypocritical. They're simply searching for justifications for their hate whenever they themselves are willing to engage in the same actions that they seem to loathe so much. Again, I think your criticism is valid, and as it often does, it gives an important perspective on this for the people who watch this with nostalgia like me.
Yeah.
I think it's a good movie. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was fun. It was a good movie, and this is a good series. I definitely, if I had to go back in time, I'd definitely do it again.
I guess there is nothing next week. Beyond Here Lies Nothing.
The Undiscovered Country.
Yeah. The Undiscovered Country. I'll make this short because no one likes credits. Star Trek is property of CBS Television Studios and Paramount Pictures. We are watching Star Trek on Netflix. We are talking over Discord. And we are recording and editing on Audacity. The Beige and The Bold is hosted on Anchor and can be found on most podcasting platforms. I would also like to thank our senior officer Patreons for supporting The Beige and The Bold. They also make video editions of this podcast and remasters of old episodes possible. So thank you to Tracker by Moonlight and Miss Jess. If you have any questions or concerns about the show, please contact me at vanvelding@gmail.com or on Twitter @vanvelding. Thank you, and remember Rand.